It's interesting how, food has kind of remained relevant, I guess, in this new career, which is not something I hadn't really thought about it. I wasn't fully aware of how much of a sort of bonding activity that was in the fire brigade.
Today on Dirty Linen, we are going to start a little bit of a sub-theme that I'm going to touch on from time to time because it's something I'm really interested in. What it is chefs and other hospitality workers and players who are not doing the predicted, the projected, the normal kind of career path. People who've left the industry to do something else, people who've taken a slightly different path. And when I thought about doing this little sub-series, the first person that I knew I wanted to have on the show as part of it is Pierre Roelofs. Pierre, until a couple of years ago, was one of Australia's most celebrated and respected pastry chefs, known for his work at fine dining restaurants and for his dessert evenings, a series of pop-ups that he did in many different places, presenting his really particular spin on desserts for an adoring public. But Pierre moved away from pastry a couple of years ago before the pandemic and has made a life that's quite different for himself. Pierre, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Hi, Dani. Yeah, thanks for those kind words. That brings back memories, hearing you talk about my past career. So, thank you to you for saying all those kind words. Thank you.
Oh, no worries. Well, I mean, I've enjoyed your cooking or your creating for a long time. I think since I first encountered you at Interlude with Robin Wickens, in the early noughties. But tell us what profession you have taken up more recently.
Since February 2020, I've been a firefighter. I became a firefighter then, and it's been an amazing journey for me, and I've really been enjoying it. Yeah, it was definitely time for a change. I've been cooking since I was 16. So it was over 25 years in kitchens. And, I just got to the point where I was feeling burnt out and felt like I'd given all that I could give and that I was after a change.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I feel like, looking back on your career from my perspective, you'd been searching for quite a while for a different way to do desserts, like not only a different way to create something on a plate, but a different way to construct life as a pastry chef. Can you sort of talk me through the thinking around that and perhaps, lead us into the decision, that perhaps that wasn't working for you and so you had to do something that was quite different?
Absolutely, yeah. Look, I started cooking when I was 16. I left school in year 10. Started cooking at just 16 and just really fell in love with it. Made a real career of it. And I pretty much gave everything to my career as a pastry chef. I traveled the world. I worked really, really hard. Worked in some really, really good kitchens, and just worked crazy hours. And, that was really fun and exciting, in my 20s. And I was really passionate about it. And, I didn't think twice about the hours that I was working and what I was doing, working in kitchens like that and how much energy it was costing me. So sort of in my early 30s, I got to the point where I wanted to try and stay in the industry but do it in a much more sustainable way for me. I just felt like I was getting close to being burnt out at that stage, and that's sort of where the dessert evenings came about.
What does burnout or on the edge of burnout feel like for you?
For me, just the realisation that I was living a really one-dimensional life. I was working, 80 to 90-hour weeks. I was spending my days off either doing my laundry, washing my whites, getting ready for the next week, buying a couple of cookbooks to stay sort of up to date with what was happening, and then spending a lot of time in bed just sleeping on my couple of days off and then going back and doing it again. Just sort of realising that wasn't giving me the life that I wanted anymore, and it was all pretty one-dimensional, hanging out with hospitality people, talking about the industry, following the industry really closely, and just not having any time to do other things. which made me start to resent the profession that I was chosen, and I didn't want to resent the industry, and I didn't want to get cynical about the industry. So I figured, I may as well try and find a new way of working in the industry that was a bit more sustainable for me and that gave me time and energy for other things in my life as well.
And so when you did the dessert nights, I mean, they sort of worked in seasons. You popped up at often at cafes that weren't being used at night time, so you could take them over and you presented these 4 or 5 course dessert degustations that, I mean, they seem to be very popular and you could really express your creativity. I mean, well, that's from my point of view. What was it like for you?
Yeah, for me, they were it was an amazing time, and I'm really, really grateful for the dessert evenings and how successful they were. They sort of gave me the recognition that I craved at that stage. It was an amazing way to express my creativity and to connect with an audience that loved what I did. It was a way to live a more sustainable life and work less hours. It wasn't a way to get rich, and it wasn't a way to make a lot of money, but it was I made enough from the dessert evenings by being I was really careful with how I ran them. My overheads were always super, super low. That was why we chose to pop up in other people's spaces, so I didn't have that sort of pressure of committing to a lease and paying that sort of money. It gave me a lot of freedom, and it gave me the ability to continue being a pastry chef and expressing myself without having the pressure of having to make a lot of money to pay overheads. So it was an awesome time, and I loved it. And then I guess, like with anything, there was also the pressure to stay relevant, to remind the public that I was still there because it was quite a niche business. So it relied heavily on, marketing and, reminding the dining public about what I was doing. Just competing against, the trends that always pass through hospitality, and there's always the next big thing. And we had to work hard to keep it going and keep people coming through the door.
I mean, you talk about that the ability to keep costs down and that it wasn't a way to get rich, but you could make it work. I mean, was there an element of resentment that you were at this sort of peak of your career, you were super creative, you were highly respected, but you weren't able to make a lot of money?
No, I wouldn't say resentment. I have no regrets, and I loved my career. I never resented that I wasn't making a whole lot of money. I think maybe from the outside looking in, people thought that I was probably living quite a different lifestyle to what I was. People probably thought that I was way more successful in a financial sense than I was, and because I had a profile and I appeared in books and in the media and got a lot of recognition for my work. And I think people who sort of followed my work may have thought that I was kind of set financially, but that wasn't the case. And by that stage I was sort of in my late 30s, and the nature of the business meant that I didn't have a set income. 1 week I might make a reasonable amount, the next week I might make half that amount. So there was always just that uncertainty of not having a regular income. And then obviously things like, super and holiday pay and all of those sort of things, which I now am the beneficiary of as a firefighter. I never had any of that kind of financial stability. So it was pretty loose, but I did enjoy it. But again, I was sort of in my late 30s and, wanting to have a bit more financial security. So,
Well, and you'd started a family by then, of course, as well.
2 young children. Wanting to be set myself up in Melbourne and, be a homeowner or all those sorts of things, which, were financially challenging for me running the dessert evenings for sure.
And so, what was the thought process? You know, you're doing that. It's satisfying in some ways, challenging in others. How do you go from that to thinking about becoming a firefighter?
Yeah, it's quite a change, isn't it? Look, I knew for a while that I wanted to transition out of hospitality for good. I just didn't know what I wanted to do beyond that. And obviously I had the challenge of also still needing to create an income and provide for my family. And so, it took me a few years to sort of work out what might work for me. I did a lot of soul searching. I kind of thought a lot about what had made me successful as a pastry chef and some of the skills that I had from hospitality that might cross over to other professions. And I sort of thought, I love working in a team. I love working on my feet and being physically fit and active. I love pressure, so I do like performing under pressure. So those were sort of the things that first started me on that journey towards becoming a firefighter. I thought, those skills of working in a team would serve me well. So I started to look into it, I started the journey in, I think, February 2018. I did some serious research. Unfortunately, that year I'd missed the cutoff date for application, so I had to wait another year until February 2019, and that's when I put in my application. And the recruitment process to become a firefighter it's really full on. It was just under a year of going through various tests. I finally got the job offer in December of 2019. So it was an intense process getting in, but it sort of suited my personality. I've always been a hard worker, and I left no stone unturned in that process, and that sort of helped me get across the line and beat, I guess, the other candidates that also applied that year.
Oh, wow. So it's not only that you have to prove yourself, it's very competitive.
It's really competitive. So from my understanding, the year that I applied, there was about 6,000 people applying for 120 spots.
Whoa,
yeah.
That is full on. So, I mean, I'm imagining some kind of, I don't know, like, I'm just thinking of those. I can't even think of their names because I don't watch them, but those reality shows where people are like crawling through the mud and over ropes. I mean, I'm imagining stuff like that. Like, what was it like?
There was multiple tests throughout the year. They varied from, the initial one was an aptitude test, which was really hard, and I really had to study for that. It was a kind of a unique set of skills that you needed to pass that test. Mechanical reasoning, again, I hadn't come from an industry where mechanical reasoning was part of my day-to-day, so I really had to study for that. I had to go back over my maths, my high school maths, visual recognition, a whole bunch of really, really difficult questions to answer in a time sensitive environment. So it was like, I think it was like a 2-hour test. You literally had to just fly through each question. You didn't have time to work things out. So that was sort of the first process. And then after that, there was a psych test which you had to pass. There was a test where they looked at your social skills and your ability to talk to an audience and work with a team. And then obviously the physical aptitude test, which is quite involved, at the Femtech, which is the training centre out in Craigieburn. And then if you get beyond all of those points, which are all, they're all hurdles in their own right, and a lot of people sort of drop by the wayside. The final test is a formal interview, and having to deliver a whole lot of information on the day in a sort of pretty stressful, nerve-wracking situation was, it was again a challenge for me, and sort of left no stone unturned and prepared for that, and a lot of time and energy into polishing my delivery and just being ready for the big day. So yeah, that was the final hurdle to becoming a firefighter.
And while you were going through this recruitment process, you were still doing the dessert evenings?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So throughout the whole process, the challenge was to obviously still keep generating an income as a pastry chef as well. Yeah. So I was sort of fitting everything in around still doing the dessert evenings. At that stage, I was doing them at Terra Twilight on Johnson Street in Collingwood. Yeah, which is an awesome spot. And we had a lot of success there. It was great. So yeah, I was just sort of ticking over, not looking to, it was kind of a challenging time because, I wasn't looking to, build, my career as a pastry chef anymore. I was just looking to just sort of tick over, to buy myself the time to get into the fire brigade. And
how did you feel when you found out that you'd got through?
I felt really happy. Yeah, I felt really, really happy. Just that sense of satisfaction of when you put in a lot of effort into something and you actually get rewarded and life actually rewards you for all of your hard work. That felt really, really nice. And it also just felt like, it was quite emotional for me. Yeah, saying goodbye to hospitality, because I knew deep down that once I got into the fire brigade that I would leave hospitality for good. I wouldn't sort of return to it. So it was an emotional time, reflecting on all those years spent in the kitchens and all the people I'd worked with and all the great times I'd had. Also being at peace with the fact that I was leaving that career behind and that I was starting something new and exciting and challenging. Yeah.
And what's it like being a firefighter?
I love it. Yeah. Look, it's obviously, just a completely different world, and not a world that I knew that much about before I got in. It's hard to explain. It's a really unique workplace because we essentially live with each other when we're on station. So it's this blend of a workplace plus sort of a share house. You're cooking together. Food is a big part of station life, which I really enjoy. So cooking together and eating together is a big part of being on station. And so obviously, my skills as a pastry chef do translate well to that part of the job. And a big part of being a firefighter is, being a team player and getting on with the people that you work with, and being a team member and enjoying station life and the relationships that you have on station. Yeah, it's a great job. I love it.
As a first responder, you must, encounter some pretty, devastating, difficult. You see people at really stressful points in their own lives. Is it quite and obviously you did have to go through a psychological evaluation to, approve your fitness for dealing with those kinds of things. But I imagine that does throw up some real challenges.
It does. And FRV, my employer, the Fire Rescue Victoria, they are, I think they pretty much lead the way in terms of talking about mental health and managing your mental health.
What's it been like for you as a person? I know that, you've been really into yoga over the years and thought a lot about, you've been quite intentional about, I guess, how you live. What's it been like for you in that sense?
I love the job. I love how meaningful the job is. I love the difference that I'm able to make as a firefighter. I love that side of the job and feeling that I'm making a difference, making a positive difference in the world with what I'm able to do, I guess, as a firefighter. So, it feels very fulfilling.
And what place does food, you talked about the importance of food in the station, but, how do you sort of reflect on the place of food in your life?
For me now, food is, I guess I eat much more simply than I used to. Um, Food's still a big part of my life. Like I said, planning meals on station, shopping for meals on station. We go to the markets quite often, and cooking together is a big part of station life because we're together on station for 10 hours on day shift and for 14 hours on our night shift. So we eat lunch together and we eat dinner together. Food is still a big part of what I do, and I really enjoy it. Yeah, I really enjoy being in the kitchen with the firefighters and cooking together and eating together. So it's interesting how food has kind of remained relevant, I guess, in this new career, which is not something I hadn't really thought about it. I wasn't fully aware of how much of a sort of bonding activity that was in the fire brigade. There's heaps of heaps of firefighters that love cooking. I work with a firefighter who's just bought a sous vide machine, so he's experimenting with slow cooking. There's a bunch of fireys that are baking sourdough bread. That's all started from one firefighter passing on his sourdough to all the others. So there's all those sorts of cool little stories in the fire brigade as well, which I find pretty exciting.
What are some of the meals that you've cooked recently for the station, or what have you cooked together with the other fireys?
What have we done recently? We had a raclette night not too long ago. One of the firefighters that I work with, his wife is French, and she's got a friend I think who works for Calendar Cheese, so she had a bunch of raclette cheese. So he brought in that, and we did a full raclette night, which was really fun. One of the firefighters I worked with, he's an ex-chef. He made an amazing ramen not too long ago, where he sort of made the stock over like 3 days, clarified it, and that was an amazing meal that we had. One of the firefighters that I worked with is he's a boiler maker by trade, so he's got amazing welding skills, and he built an amazing sort of American barbecue that we've used for like slow cooked beef brisket and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of good food on station, and the portions are pretty big. That's something I've had to get used to.
It sounds so different to hospitality in terms of like the rhythm of the day. You've got this job where a lot of it is about being on standby for something that might be about to happen, whereas in hospitality you've sort of got this flow that is a bit more predictable. Absolutely,
yeah. I always found, in kitchens there's definitely a rhythm to the day, but I always found like in top kitchens there's always like an intense pressure throughout the day to meet all these sort of micro deadlines, to be ready for lunch service, pack down, be ready for dinner service. So it was like an intense pressure that was just always there to keep moving forward and making sure that you had everything ready for the next service. Whereas being a firefighter, it's there's some downtime, and you just never know when you will be in a stressful situation. It's a very different sort of rhythm to the day. What I love about it too is that when you are in a stressful situation, there's just a lot of support. You're part of a team. There's a lot of people around you, and you're all working together to achieve a positive outcome. So, you never feel like you're carrying everything on your shoulders, which I really enjoy. There's just a camaraderie in the fire brigade that's hard to explain. It's not something I've really felt elsewhere. The way that you're sort of brought up into the team and supported it's pretty special. I really enjoy that side of the job as well.
Is there an incident that you can tell us about that's, I don't know, you felt really proud of the work that you've done, or it's been really, I don't know, something spectacular has happened?
I guess without going into too much detail, there was a fire in a Chinese restaurant on Little Burke Street. It was a kitchen fire.
and that was sort of my first proper fire. That only happened a couple of months ago. And that was just like, for me, it was an intense situation to finally be inside a building fighting a fire with other firefighters. It's something that you train for, but you don't ever fully know what it's going to be like until you experience it. And that was a job that, it was amazing just to see how everything worked and how many people on the fire ground were doing their job and looking out for you, and things just seem to happen, and things just are there when you need them. And there's so many people being really proactive and using their initiative and their experience to make sure that you're in a situation that you're able to do your job. So that was a pretty fulfilling moment, and to come out of that job, having put out a fire, no one was hurt. That was pretty exciting.
Wow. And was it, the training kicked in?
To a degree, yes. But again, I'm a junior firefighter, so there's huge similarities with kitchen culture in the sense of, there's a strong focus on hierarchy, and I'm very much a junior firefighter, so I'm like a commie chef in a kitchen. I'm not expected to know everything, and I'm not put in situations where I'm in over my head. There's always the support of more seasoned, experienced firefighters around me, which I really enjoy that aspect of the job, the way that you're kind of brought up in the group, and sort of they take you under their wing, and they pass on all of their knowledge and experience, and they're there to support you, which is a beautiful part of the job.
And how different is it, the financial stability? Yeah,
it's amazing. Look, the conditions for an FRV firefighter are really good. The hours of work, I think, are really, really good. Just to be paid overtime, to be paid holiday pay, to have an employer that's actually paying your super. I've worked for many restaurants that never paid the super that they should have. I used to work 38. I used to work 80 hours and get paid for 38. I've worked in hotels where we used to clock off at 3 in the afternoon and then continue working until 11 at night. Which again, no regrets. At the time, I loved it. I loved the work that I was doing. But now to work for an employer that pays me for every hour that I work, and there's really, really good conditions. I really enjoy that aspect of the job too. The job security, the wages, holiday pay, stuff that so many people would take for granted, but coming from hospitality, and particularly maybe from my generation, they weren't necessarily always the norm when I was working in Australia. So there is something that I really craved around just the job security and a good decent income to build the life that I'd like to build.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, there's some people that will be nodding their heads along to that and thinking, yep, I've missed out on my super, I've worked over the hours. And other people will probably be thinking, well, hang on, things have changed a bit. There's a lot more compliance these days, and people are certainly not obliged to stay in a job where the pay and conditions aren't right. I mean, do you think that you left hospitality at a time where perhaps things were improving, at least for some people?
I guess from my perspective, I'm sort of on the outside looking in as well, because for the last 10 years in hospo, I was sort of doing my own little thing, and I didn't have that much to do with the hospitality industry. So I've sort of, I've been following that closely as well. Just, the stories of different chefs being accused of different things, and people going into bat for the young chefs that have been underpaid and all that sort of thing. So I followed that closely. I think that's a great thing. But I guess, because I haven't been in the industry for quite some time, I'm not sure what the reality actually looks like anymore. I hope that change comes.
Yeah, well, I think in some ways it is, and in some ways there's still a lot further to go. What would you say to other people working in hospitality now who are perhaps wondering, if it's the right place for them? feels like it takes a lot of courage. And obviously for you, it took a lot of research and time to transition. I mean, yeah, how can you reflect on that and perhaps offer advice to other people?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's definitely a brave move changing careers. If I can do it, anyone can do it. I mean, I did it in my mid-40s with 2 kids to support, and what from the outside looking in would have been like a pretty successful career. I had a lot of respect from the people that I worked with, so yeah, I was kind of seen, I guess, as someone who's been successful in the industry. So for me to move on from that and get into something completely different in my life situation means that I reckon anyone can do it if that's what they want. It felt right to me. I guess everyone's got to know themselves whether they want to stay in the industry and whether they can see a future for themselves. I guess for me, I never took that next step of like becoming an operator or a business owner as such. So I was always in the kitchen. So I never transitioned out of the kitchen as such. And I think, you sort of want to have a plan as you move into your late 30s, 40s to maybe not be standing in the kitchen for all those hours and all of those nights. And that's not something that I had in place. So, for me, this was just a natural transition out of hospitality. I would certainly advise chefs to just have a think about their future and have a plan of where they'd like to be, so they don't get caught out. Coming into their and wondering how they're going to provide for their families or live a lifestyle that is sustainable for them. Yeah.
How do you think about desserts now?
I don't think about desserts that much. The desserts that I think about are the ones that I make it on station. When I make an apple crumble at work, I just make a classic, really good. There's nothing extra. I don't bring in I obviously bring in my knowledge and experience as a pastry chef, but I don't change it in any way. I just make a good classic apple crumble. Or when I make a bread and butter pudding or a caramel slice or a brownie, I just make a really, really good example of that without any experimentation with flavour or anything like that. I just enjoy doing simple things that I know the firefighters on station will appreciate.
You don't reckon if you put apple crumble in a tube and passed it around the station that people would get into it?
Oh, look, a couple of the fireys have discovered my Instagram page and they've started asking what these tubes are, and they've seen different videos of things that I've done in the past.
What do you think when you look back at your Instagram? Do you feel nostalgic? Do you feel disconnected? Do you feel proud? What sort of feelings do you have?
I feel proud of my career. I feel grateful. I feel like that part of me that I've moved on from that part of me. I don't feel like a yearning to continue expressing like a creativity in desserts or I probably feel a little bit disconnected from it. Yeah, but I do feel proud and grateful of that part of my life. But it does well and truly feel like I've moved on to something else now, and that there's no sort of there's no desire to dabble back in that part of my career, I guess. Yeah, no, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
It's really interesting. And what about your creativity? Because, you're so creative. Have you used that in different ways?
I've yet to discover what the next outlet will be. Writing is something that I'm drawn to. I'd like to start writing a little bit more. But yeah, right now I'm just enjoying life. Yeah. But I do, people do ask me that where my next or where that creative outlet is now in my life. I'm yet to have an answer for that, but I do think that writing is something that I'd like to start doing more and more of.
Exciting.
Yeah, well, watch this space.
Well, Pierre, it's so great to hear your story. I feel like, you are a loss to the world of pastry and cuisine, but it's impossible to begrudge you this next stage of your life, because it's clearly what you needed to do, and it was right for you. It does make me reflect on the industry that wasn't able to support you and hang on to you, and I just also feel happy for you, and really grateful, like firefighting is such important work. We really rely on people that do that job. And so I'm glad that you were able to get through the recruitment and perform that role for the community. I have very mixed feelings, but I'm definitely glad to talk to you as always and hear your story.
Yeah, look, I'm sure there's probably a lot of chefs that I've worked with in the past that would sort of be blown away that I've moved on. I think of some of the chefs that I worked with in the UK that thought so highly of me as a person and as a pastry chef, and sort of saw me at the peak of my career, and had a lot of respect for my abilities. Not often, but I do sometimes think what they would think, because I don't think they could have ever imagined that I would not always be Pierre the pastry chef. Yeah, if they're listening to this podcast, they'll be reflecting on that now, I guess.
I'm sure they'll be super proud of you, and that the personal qualities that they admired in you, they'll still see. Just, I guess you're just using them in a different way. But it is really interesting. But thank you so much for sharing your story with the Dirty Linen crowd today, Pierre. I'm sure it's going to give a lot of people food for thought.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
No worries. See you out there in a fire truck one day. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This